The EU has carefully orchestrated each step of the Brexit negotiations in order to undermine Prime Minister Boris Johnson and lure him into the tunnel of doom, a civil servant has claimed. Mr. Johnson has said he believes a trade deal with the EU is not likely and that the UK should now get ready to leave the bloc's single market and customs union at the end of the year without a new agreement in place. Speaking from Downing Street in a televised speech at the end of last week, Mr. Johnson kept the door open for further talks but blamed Brussels for refusing to negotiate seriously in recent months. He said he would always be willing to hear from the EU side negotiators if they came back to the UK with a fundamental change of approach. Last month, the UK government set a deadline of the 15th of October for an agreement to be struck, or clearly be within sight, saying there would be no point continuing talks beyond this week without adequate progress. The UK's chief negotiator David Frost and his EU counterpart Michel Barnier are set to hold further discussions. However, after a summit with the bloc's leaders concluded on Friday, it has become apparent sticking points on fisheries and the level playing field remain. As tensions are set to rise in the coming days, a recent report by a civil servant close to the negotiations suggests Mr. Johnson might have been right to not believe in the good faith of Brussels, urging the country to prepare for no deal. Instead, Caroline Bell argued each step in the Brexit negotiation has been carefully orchestrated to undermine Mr. Johnson and lure him into the tunnel of doom. She wrote, "The conclusions of the European Council on Brexit were entirely predictable. The communiqué has been published in draft in the European press and widely trailed in the media for the past 2 weeks. We knew that the Council would not be reaching any decision on a trade deal with the UK, but instead listening to a stock take of progress in the talks by Michel Barnier. The UK's lack of engagement would be duly deplored, and the EU would double down on its untenable demands of full access to UK waters, control of the UK economy through state aid legislation and judicial governance by the European Court of Justice, ECJ." Ms. Bell noted how the French have been mightily busy in the past few weeks preparing exactly this scenario. She explained, "They have repeatedly misrepresented the UK's offer on fisheries, which is, quite frankly, more than any EU state has a right to expect, in order to try to effect the trade-off with the far more important issue of obtaining a stranglehold over the UK economy enforceable in the ECJ. Governance is a polite cover for the kind of oversight the EU wants." Boris's deadline of an acceptable outline of a deal being clear by the 15th of October has been openly mocked. "We will carry on talking until the 31st of October, announced Michel Barnier. This week the French Foreign Minister Yves Le Drian pushed the deadline to the middle of November. Today the French President of the European Central Bank, ECB Christine Lagarde seemed to suggest that a deal could be reached at midnight on the 31st of December. According to Ms. Bell, the thinking in Paris is clear. President Macron believes that Mr. Johnson's willingness to extend talks over the summer indicates that he is desperate to take whatever crumbs fall from the EU's table. He has convinced the EU 27 that the Prime Minister is bluffing about walking out of talks if there is no progress. She added, "So the game plan is to call his bluff in the expectation that the EU can string out the talks until mid-November and beyond, even though Boris would immediately lose all credibility, both at home and abroad, as well as his considerable negotiating leverage. The EU would then double down on its unreasonable demands, pepper him with sneers and insults, refuse to discuss any UK proposals or agree legal text, and then offer up a last-minute concession, like accepting our generous fisheries proposals, while they stuff the legal small print on the level playing field and governance provisions with EU rules on judicial control which would hamstring us for all eternity. Should the PM fail to accept whatever pig in a poke was produced by such a method, Macron would probably prefer no deal. That way he can strengthen his position in the EU in the hope that we would be forced on our knees back to the negotiating table sometime next year. Meanwhile his poll ratings would improve. There is nothing like a bit of Brit bashing to boost a French presidential campaign, and he would have seriously undermined German dominance in the EU by forcing Angela Merkel to swallow a strategy for which German businesses would pay a heavy price. So he would regard it as a political win, and for France, politics will always trump economics, the civil servant concluded for her piece in Briefings for Britain. Each step in the Brexit negotiation has been carefully orchestrated to undermine Boris Johnson and lure him into the tunnel of doom. It is a cleverly staged production, but farcical nonetheless, and it has played for far too long. It is time for the Prime Minister to bring down the curtain and end talks now. If the EU 27 really want a deal, They will have a humongous dust-up amongst themselves and return in short order with some common sense and fresh proposals which respect the UK's position as an independent country. If not, no deal is certainly better than a bad deal.